Hey, Lift over at Kittery Point. Pastor Tim here. Just want to put a quick video together for you. I was thinking about our time in the book of Job on Tuesday night, and I thought maybe I'll put out some videos so that you can have some content to reflect on during the week coming out of what we study on Tuesday night. So we looked at Job, we looked at verses 1 to 5, and then 6 through 11. 1 to 5 is really the introduction to who Job is, and then 6 through 11 is this cosmic courtroom, really, where we saw that Satan comes before God and basically says, Job is very faithful and loves you because you give him nice things, but if you took all his blessings away, he would curse you to your face. So that's kind of the summary of where we went. I threw out some questions at the end, and I just want to restate those to give you some food for thought. Maybe during this week, you can take some time, a couple different days, and journal about these questions. What are the implications for you coming out of Job? As we said, a character study is not just to learn the content of the Bible, but to say, what do I learn from this person of the Bible that I can admire? What do I learn from a person of the Bible that maybe I want to do differently? So first question I threw out there is, what do you think? What do you believe? What do you know about spiritual beings, about spiritual realities? Because we see Job and in the future his wife and friends. Those are earthly realities, but we also see in this opening chapter angels and Satan and God. And so we can be caught up in day-to-day life and just focus on the idea of what's here right in front of me all the time. But Scripture clearly teaches that there's spiritual beings out there. There's a spiritual reality. And so spend some time just journaling and thinking about that. What do I actually believe about a spiritual life, about spiritual realities, a spiritual world beyond what I can see? The second question I asked is that we see Job is accused by Satan of liking or following or loving God, pursuing God because he gets good things. And so the challenge is to say, if God took the blessings away, Job would turn his back. And so my question for us to think about is, how do you think about that? Do you view God as good and holy, and you love him because you love him, because he's worthy of being loved? Or do you love him because he does good things for you? And when he doesn't do good things, do you get mad at him? And for most of us, it's a fluctuation between those worlds. We don't fall on one side or the other totally. But think about, how does your relationship with God change based on how you're feeling during the day? How good a day you're having? Do you love God or talk to God more or less based on your interactions? One thing that was interesting about Job was that he loved and pursued God because of his relationship with him, and he was blessed. Sometimes people are so blessed that they're like, I don't need God. But Job was blessed and knew that he still needed God. And we saw he was a righteous man, even making sacrifices for like the possible sins of his children. So what does your relationship with God look like when it comes to how do you respond to him and engage with him depending on the day or the week you're having? If it's good, more. Is it bad, less? Somewhere in between. All right, so there's the second thought. Here's the third one, is that I just want you to see the gospel. This is less of a reflection question or a question for you to ponder, but just I want you to see the gospel in Job. Jesus is the greater everything of the Bible. Jesus is the greater Joseph of the Bible. Jesus is the greater Joshua. Jesus is the greater Moses. All the characters of the Bible, Jesus is the perfected version of them. Even in their good spots, they have flaws, and Jesus doesn't have those flaws. So Jesus is the greater Job. Jesus is the one who loved and pursued the will of his Father, even when blessings came, and even when the challenges came. When it was the time of deep pain and struggle at the cross, he didn't curse God. He didn't yell at God. He didn't say, how dare you? He said, I submit to your will. And so I just want you to see that Job was loved of God not because of his righteousness, but because God chose to love him. And Jesus, in Job's failure to live a perfectly righteous life, even though he was an upright person, he still failed. Jesus took the punishment that we should all receive. And Job didn't live a perfect life, but Jesus did. Job struggled with and was angry at God for his will, while Jesus struggled with, he submitted perfectly to God's will. So there's the gospel, or some of the gospel in the book of Job so far. Here's the last one. Just a reiteration of what we talked about Tuesday, to say it's easy for when good things come for us to say, look what I've done. But I just jotted some notes down here. Like, if you can earn a living, did you give yourself that ability? If you're healthy enough to work, is that because of you? If you're smart enough to work, is that because of you? If you have a job and live in the United States of America, is that because of you? Yes, there are choices we all have to make, and the scripture speaks to our freedom to choose and to engage in much of what God's put in front of us, but we also have to realize the ability to do many things. The root, the source of all things, it comes back to God. Acts 17 is this phrase. It says, in him we live and move and have our being. Because of God, and the very breath we have is given to us from him. So just a reminder for us to say, Job was aware, and I'm sure Job was a hard worker and a wise man and capable, but he was also aware that he was radically dependent on God. And so that's a challenge for us to remember, that we are radically dependent on him as well. So there's just some food for thought. Ponder those things. Think about how they might fit into, your life and how it applies to your life. And we will see you next Tuesday to continue our study in the book of Job, as we've entitled it Struggle. All right. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.